wanted to explain to people who might not get it, but I think everyone gets it, why I called you the rebel queen of the disclosure movement. And I think that the same way that Aretha Franklin is the queen of soul, I think you're the queen of the disclosure movement. And a lot of people are using your format, but it's exactly the same format that you've used. And I just wonder if you're happy to be the instigator of this movement and bringing the truth about aliens and, you know.
Well, I mean, there were people before me, you know, like William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. And he's also a good friend, was a friend of Juan O'Savin. If you've ever listened to that, he's in the movie The Called. He goes, visits his grave. But there are other, you know, like Bob Dean. I mean, in essence, I stand on the shoulders of all those that came before me, all of the ones that I interviewed who taught me so much and really disclosed the truth. You know, nowadays, it's just my opinion, but after Snowden and Assange came forward, they cracked down on whistleblowers very seriously. So we hit the scene at a time when there were a lot of older whistleblowers who were, I call it, being put out to pasture. We just hit the ground running, starting to do, and we were unusual because we also, initially, we did our interviews in person, even with a consumer grade camcorder, like was just a shit camera, basically. Yeah. No special lighting. I believed in what you call guerrilla filmmaking back in the day, which was kind of pioneered, you might say, by MTV in the early days when they, you know, would just kind of slap something together and not worry about, you know, formal production, what are called production values. Because I went to film school and I studied filmmaking. Eventually, I taught my partner at the time, Bill Ryan. We only lasted less than 3 years as partners in the first few years, but you know, we were very popular, like Sonny and Cher or something at the time. And we were extremely popular because we would travel the world on, you know, for dirt cheap, stay in shit places and whatnot, and drove around in this old funky station wagon that he had, driving, because he was British, so we could drive across the channel, you know, like however you do that, and then go into Europe. So we went around Europe that way. And it was a small inheritance I had because my mother passed away right before that. And I had picked up a consumer grade camcorder on my own and decided to make a UFO documentary. And that's how the whole thing started. And Bill Ryan was one of the interviews I did for my documentary. And that's all in my book.
Yes. And I just wanted to say that, you know, the format that you created together with Bill, that's the format that everyone's using. So that's what I was getting at, is that interview style that's kind of fresh.
In essence, we started a movement because prior to me, there were journalists who, you know, like Linda Moulton Howe was before my time, and this other Paula Harris, but they didn't use video. They do now, but they didn't back then. Yeah. And in fact, they actually didn't like us. Tried to stop us from speaking at conferences and stuff because we were considered too radical and stuff at the time. But we didn't care. We just plowed ahead and did our stuff.
You just plowed ahead.
I was one of the first YouTube directors ever. And because of that, when everyone else was doing 10-minute videos, I was doing 2-hour videos. So people used to wait, like every week we would have a new interview, and we were traveling around in Europe in person. And it was very radical to do what we did. We used to upload our videos like on a pirate thing late at night outside an Apple store, using their connection to upload our video.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. You're very brave. You are, you're very brave, Gary. You know, and you give a lot of courage and give a lot of hope to other people. I hope you know that.
Well, I hope so. I like to. I mean, that's my personality also. I am a rebel at heart. I've always been a rebel. I talk back to my teachers in school. I talk back to my parents. I always was an independent thinker.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good thing.
I think a lot of us here are probably the of all our families too, right? I know I was. I wanted to talk a little bit about the TV pilot that never got aired, which I think would have been fabulous. I've seen it a few
Actually, it was aired. It just wasn't publicized.
shadow operations, right?
Yeah, we shot a pilot for a TV show that was supposed to be the follow-up to Jesse Ventura Conspiracy Theory, that series, if you know about it. I don't know in Canada what you know, but in essence, they had lots and lots of episodes of Jesse Ventura, and they decided that this is the story that we were told. It may not even be true, but we were told that he didn't want to deal with aliens. So they hired me and my ex-partner, Bill Ryan. And by the way, I've been doing this for 18 years. So this TV pilot came along in 2009. I think we filmed it and then was put on a shelf. They fired the director, they fired the producer, and they brought in another team because during the filming, a lot of people might know a guy named Gordon Neville, who was one of our witnesses, and he was working for the CIA. And I always used to tease him that I knew he was working for the CIA. He used to go, "Oh, no, I'm not." He'd say that. So then one night he called our producer and he basically made him an offer he shouldn't refuse, basically saying, if you let us, meaning us, the CIA,
Right.
run your show, then you will go to series. And our producer was a young kind of guy, independent thinker, and he refused. And so he was fired. The producer, the director was also fired, and they finished shooting the pilot with us, but then they put it on the shelf and they didn't air it until like a year later, when one Friday night they aired it. But we have had lots of dedicated fans out there, and someone saw it on the list for that night's shows, and so they notified us a couple hours in advance. So we actually filmed a copy of it, and it's on my website. It's on odyssey.com, on my Odyssey channel as well. It's called Shadow Operation, or Shadow Op. And it deals with a lot of our witnesses from all of the interviews I've done, including, Bob Dean and Gordon Neville and a bunch of other people. And we are on location shooting it in the Southwest. And it's a fun show. It's worth seeing. And then that was the end of it. They've shelved it again and hasn't. Luckily, we have a copy, so we're able to distribute it out to our audience online, but it hasn't gone back on TV since then.
I've seen it a few times, Kerry, and I love it. And each time I love it more. I posted some pictures from the show on the meetup under your post. So
yeah, I think I saw
people will get excited by that and go watch it. It's available in a lot of places, actually. After I wrote to you, I found it in a lot of places, but I had seen it before.
Yeah, I mean, people have basically ripped off our videos for the past 18 years. Right. I'm banned on YouTube, but other people stole my stuff for so long that they probably have whole channels. They make money off of me and, whatever. So, but we had to basically become subscription based. It's dirt cheap, $3 a month. And I have thousands and thousands of video interviews with individuals and whistleblowers and experiencers and you name it. And I investigate. There's nothing really off the table that I don't investigate.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Bob Dean. I know he was one of your faves, so I wanted you to just put in a little something for him, just to, in memorial.
He has passed on. He's a lovely man. Highly recommend all my interviews with him. I did so many, and he's just a brilliant, lovely old, is part of the Old Boys Network. They did, a lot of people don't know there's one show with Clifford Stone and Robert O'Dean made, Command Sergeant Robert O'Dean is technical title. He was involved in SHAPE headquarters in Europe as a young man. He was brought, he was sort of bored sitting at a desk job at a certain point, and his commanding officer brought him this book, basically telling him all about the military's involvement with ETs and UFOs and so on. So that woke him up at a very young age. Eventually, he stayed in the military a number of years, but eventually he did get out. And then he started to become a whistleblower on the circuit long before we knew about him. But we found out about him, and then he says I made him a rock star because he became so famous after I started interviewing him. And some people don't like my interview style. And I even got threatening letters from military people say, how dare I talk to him like that? But he loved it. And he loved me. So I was like a daughter to him. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And one of his famous quotes is, we come from the stars and we will return to the stars.
I love that. Yeah. One of the things that you talk about in your book about him is that he said that there's been 100,000 years of extraterrestrial presence on the earth. And, that really takes your brain for a loop. People that are just thinking that it happened since 1947. Oh no.